I want to welcome everyone else that's watching right now. This is the very first episode of Trainer Talk. I'm Aaron, he's Korey. You'll get to know a little bit more about us in just a little bit, but we're excited to start this series. It's going to be once per month, and we're going to bring you great information on a variety of topics to help you in the areas of, strength training, conditioning, nutrition, health, pretty much everything fitness. So what we're really going to do is get on here and just kind of do what we like to do most, and that's just kind of chat about all things fitness and health related. So I know Korey and I have done that quite a bit in the past, so we just want to bring some of those conversations to you. So how are you doing, Korey?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. Been a busy, productive day so far, but ready to get this going and take this conversation to everyone else. So why don't you go ahead and start, and we'll kind of give everyone just a little bit of background that tells us why we enjoy, talking about these topics, and kind of give a little background of what we're going to bring to everyone.
Sure. I guess, yeah. Background on, who I am. Well, like my role at HK is acquisitions editor. That's what I'm currently doing. But yeah, previously, most of my experience in fitness, health, or training is with collegiate strength and conditioning. And then I also was, at the same time as I was a college strength coach, I was a professor. So I had kind of a dual role in academics. So I taught all kinds of courses. I taught anatomy, I taught strength and conditioning, I taught nutrition, motor learning, all kinds of stuff. And then the main teams I worked with were football, wrestling, soccer, cheer, and dance. And so I did that for 6 years. Before that, I was a personal trainer, so I got that experience as well. And then before that I was like a student for a while. So I did some nutrition research in graduate school, got my master's in nutrition, and then my undergrad is just exercise science. So that's kind of my brief background.
Okay. I guess differently than Korey, I have been in the private sector my entire career, working mostly with high school, junior high level athletes. I do work with a lot of gym pop clients, although I guess the kind of the direction that my career is going right now, as far as training, is more athletic based. So, certified through the NSCA, and just kind of over time, I've realized that there are a lot of things that I don't know, and I think anyone in this profession kind of realizes that we don't know everything. So I just started diving into, every possible area that was going to help me with the athletes that I have. So kind of get a little more into weightlifting performance with the Olympic lifts, definitely speed and agility. Every athlete wants to be faster, wants to be able to move more efficiently. And then I got, I don't know how much this will come up in our talks here, but I kind of got an influx of tennis athletes coming in. So I actually got certified through the ITPA as a certified tennis performance specialist. So a little more knowledge in that area. But yeah, like I said, we're just excited to bring you all the knowledge possible that we have on these different topics. So Korey, it's the beginning of the year. And a lot of people, might set, New Year's resolutions or kind of have different goals. Are you a New Year's resolution type guy, or do you just kind of, pick what you want to get better at throughout the year?
Yeah, I've never been a New Year's resolution guy. I never. I mean, I obviously think about things I would like to change, but I guess my thought has always kind of been, why wait? I guess, but I get both sides of it because sometimes it is nice to have the mindset of a fresh start of all right, this is going to be the thing, this is going to be the moment, I'm doing this. But I personally have never been a big New Year's resolution guy, but I understand why people are, and discussion today we'll find out why I'm not.
I don't know. I think maybe when I was younger, I kind of got excited about the idea. It's a brand new year, as far as the calendar goes anyway. That's kind of a fresh start in that sense. But I'm kind of with you, whereas like if I want to make a change, then I just want to, get right into it. Like I don't necessarily want to wait a few months before I start making those changes, because if it's something I'm passionate about, then I want to get it done right away. So I guess, what are some of the obstacles that you come across when you try to make some of those changes? That this is what we're going to talk a little bit about, maybe more the meat of our discussion today.
Well, just listening, kind of as I think more about the New Year's resolution thing, one aspect of change or habit change or whatever, goal setting, however you want to think about it, is that time is a lot. So if someone is thinking about, okay, I'm going to use the new year as like my starting point, we have to somewhat think about what is the environment going to be like when that change is going to be made. You can somewhat set yourself up for success or somewhat set yourself up for failure if you're trying to somewhat force a change when maybe the time from an overall environment standpoint is right. Now, I'm not saying like there will be a perfect time for certain changes, because the aspect of change where there's never a perfect time, like sometimes you have to deal with the hand that you're dealt and deal with the environment and, the setting that you're in. But when it comes to change and behavior change and like the hurdles that take place, the timing is a big factor. I think it can be a big hurdle in the fact that, I guess when I think about change, I'll dive into it like right now. Like there's kind of three things I think that need to occur.
Okay.
That is, for whatever change you want to implement or focus on, you have to be willing and able to make the change.
Yeah.
So like if you have something in mind that you would like to change, and the new year, again, you're using like the new year as your starting point. If you're like emotionally and mentally ready and willing for the change, then you might need to rethink the change.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I'm thinking to some of my experiences, maybe not so much with the younger athletes, but my Gen Pop clients, who have different kinds of stress in their life. And, they're coming in to work with you for a direct reason, whether that's they want fat loss, they want to get stronger, need to improve a lot of areas of health and fitness. Sometimes, like you said, change isn't easy. So what I usually do in that case is, you have to kind of like coach them along and maybe make gradual changes. And a lot of times that comes with, maybe changing one small aspect of whatever they're doing. Say, I had a client, for example, that she traveled a lot for her job.
Yeah.
And so she really had to keep a grasp on her nutrition, because she was constantly staying in hotels, like eating out at nice restaurants. But one of the changes we had to make was like, okay, you're in this environment right now. That's something you can't change because you have to do your job. But how can we make healthier changes or healthier decisions at the restaurants that you're eating at? Or if you need a snack, what are some healthier snacks that you can get, as opposed to, I don't know, going to get a donut or a candy bar or something like that. So I think that you kind of agree there that it might not be about making big changes, large changes all at once, but you kind of have to move gradually and make some of those smaller changes along the way.
Yeah, I think as a general rule for, all like behavior change, in general, I think a rule of thumb is that for the most part, small, like I guess incremental changes over time are going to outperform big changes very quickly, or changes that disrupt your natural rhythm of life. Change that very quickly. By and large, I think, smaller, more incremental. I don't want to say small in the fact that they're insignificant.
Right.
I guess more a better way to put like what I mean there. Over time are going to outperform, really drastic changes very quickly. But then I think with that story, that's a really good, I think there's two things that are really cool about that story. Number one, and this is a really critical part of change, that like when we were like, oh my gosh, how did we not think of this?
Yeah.
Your client had help. Like your
Right.
client, you know, set the environment up in a way, or, you know, helped herself out by saying, I'm going to get help. I'm going to have Aaron, you know, take some off my plate and say, I'm going to trust his advice and not have to like rely on myself to like do all the research and then find out and wade through what are the healthy options.
Right.
You know, that's a whole world of, you know, wading through that can get a lot for someone to take on if they don't have the knowledge base that maybe like you and I do.
Right.
And then there's an educational aspect to it. So ready, willing, able, going back to those three things, the ability of your client to change might not have been there quite yet because she didn't have the knowledge base.
Sure.
So once she had the ability to change because she had the knowledge, that change became a lot easier to take on.
Right. And I think that's not just a plug necessarily for people like us who are trainers and who do want to help people, but I think that's a good point. I mean, there's so much information I think that can be a good thing and bad thing. There's so much information out there that it's easily accessible, but it does help a lot to have someone that's maybe a little more knowledgeable that can help you kind of sift through that information and decide, you know, what's good, what's bad. Maybe one bit of information is really good for one person, but it might not work for another person. So you really kind of have to find out what works for you and kind of make changes along those lines too.
Right, because the nice thing about getting help is it somewhat takes some of the decision-making load off your plate.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Choice can be a bad thing when it comes to action.
Right.
Of what the routes you can go, that can just be debilitating. It can be, you know, analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, so to speak. So that's just another great aspect of hiring a coach or having a help, having assistance, is that aspect of just the path is a little more clear. So this is very actionable. I know what I need to do, and there's not as much ambiguity there.
I think that's a good point too, because when you are in a situation where you want to make change or set new goals, a lot of times that's generally a weakness for you, an area that you might not be as strong in. And some people can be so overwhelmed with everything else in their life that's one of the reasons that they put that particular aspect of their life off or didn't focus on it as much. So excellent point in, you know, seeking out that good information to try to guide you along and help make those small changes too. I think that's one thing. I think as humans, we kind of look at everything like, I can do this on my own. I don't need anyone else's help. When, I mean, if you could do it on your own, then you probably wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things to take away from this maybe is if you are looking to make change in your life, to set new goals, and you want to make those changes last a long time, don't be afraid to reach out and get good quality information, or at least decide what's going to be good information for you in your particular situation.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. And like your comment or your point about if you could change it, you wouldn't be in this situation.
Right.
One of the biggest, aspects of behavior change and habit change to accept and understand and realize is that everyone has stuff they struggle with.
Yeah.
Everybody
Absolutely.
has that they want to work on. No one has it all together from the standpoint of like, yep, every aspect of my life is to the point that I want in. So if you're like, one thing that I've been wanting to change for so long and I just can't do it, or, you know, feeling like almost like guilty about not being able to change something that you think you should.
Right.
You're not, you know, you're normal. That stuff. And like, especially in our field of fitness and wellness and nutrition, sports performance, it's like there can be a lot of shame sometimes if we struggle with those types of things that surround those subject areas. And what's interesting, I don't know, maybe your experiences have been different, is that the skills needed to change in some aspects are not transferable to change in other aspects. So
Sure.
like a lot of times in our field, I somewhat get I get frustrated a little bit with people, if people are kind of taking the mindset of, well, hey, you know how to do X, Y, Z, do that for this.
Right.
Or what they're missing is maybe there's an emotional aspect to some change. Maybe there's a spiritual or mental aspect to a certain change. And just kind of assuming that the skills that you can apply for one habit are also, you can just transfer over and do another. I mean, I think about most people just kind of think about the things they struggle with or the things that they want to change. You know, that's not true to a degree. Now, I'm not saying you can't use like, all right, this is maybe like the type of thing I did. How can I somewhat adapt it to something else that I want to do?
Sure.
But by and large, like those, because you can do one thing does not necessarily mean you already can do another thing. So that's just like something I've noticed over time with change. I don't know if that's been your experience as well, but yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree there, because I think it's what you just said reminds me of a comedian I was listening to, and I'm not going to go into his whole bit, but he made the point that everyone sitting in that audience watching and listening to him was really good at one thing. Like, chances are you are an expert at something, no matter what it is. That could be you're an excellent teacher or you're an excellent accountant, but at the same time, I mean, that accountant or that business owner might not be the best at, I don't know, pick any other aspect of life or business or something like that. So just because you're really good at one area doesn't mean you're going to be good at all areas. So I think that's, to your point, that's where a lot of I guess components of change might not transfer over to other areas of life. I don't know if that made sense to you,
yeah,
but
I think that's exactly the point I was getting at, is that like we all have things we struggle with, and we all have things that are going to come more naturally to us.
Right.
When we are helping people with change, or even just thinking about our own changes we want to make, you almost have to give yourself a little grace there, or give other people a little grace there, of the fact that, like, just because something is easy and comes easier for you, not only does that doesn't mean it comes easy to other people, and it also doesn't mean that they have the same strategies and the same methods. Now, like, what's tough about like that realization is like, well, then what do I do? Because we obviously can change, and we obviously change. So I guess, you know, what in your opinion are the steps needed to take then, if someone's like, well, I know I struggle with this, but I'm committed to change, I'm committed to this. Like, what have you found to be successful in those situations?
I think one of the biggest things, and we'll probably always, I mean, this could be changed for any aspect of life, but speaking to our specific niche in training, you know, fitness, I found a lot of times if you schedule something or put something into your schedule to do and kind of make it a priority in that way, that's going to help you stay on track a little bit more. I mean, we set appointments in our calendar for, you know, meetings at work, or, you know, hair appointments, doctor's appointments, whatever. But I think a lot of times, if we're talking specifically about fitness and, you know, improving those areas of our lives, we don't really prioritize that. It's just kind of like, well, I'll get in a workout when I have time. And if you do it that way, a lot of times you're going to run out of time and you're never going to have time. So I think that's, I mean, speaking of in the profession of, you know, being a personal trainer, that's why a lot of people do hire a trainer, is because I've had clients before that, I mean, I've been training them for 3, 4, 5 years. And sometimes I look at it, I'm like, you are perfectly capable of doing this on your own. Like the exercises, you know, the workouts that we do, like you can do this on your own. But some of them have been honest, like, and they actually say, no, I need this appointment. I need to put this on my schedule. Otherwise, I won't do it. So whether that is, getting in more workouts, or staying more consistent with those, or maybe it's nutrition. Maybe your eating habits aren't where they should be. Maybe actually put that in your calendar and say, hey, I'm going to eat this meal at this time of the day. Because honestly, I know a lot of people, especially in the business world, that it sounds crazy to some people, but they forget to eat. And that's just as bad sometimes as overeating.
That's so crazy to me.
Right. I know how much you like to eat. So, but no, I think just scheduling things and making a priority in that respect will help a lot of people, even with those small changes. And maybe after a little bit of time, you don't need to actually put it in your schedule. But that's something we were talking about, making those little changes along the way to create habits so that you can get on track and move in the direction that you want to go.
Yeah. I mean, the mindset around the change is a big deal, obviously. And that kind of speaks to the commitment level of, yes, I'm so willing to make this a part of my new life or my new rhythm of life and my new, just insert it in there somehow, that I'm treating this like an appointment. I mean, personally, for me, that's been massive since COVID.
Yeah.
Is my workouts, when I was in the collegiate setting, the academic setting, man, I was so inconsistent because I did not say, yep, this is the time I'm training and this is the time I'm working out, no matter what.
Right.
Treating this as if almost like it's a class I've got to teach. I have that approach or mindset. I let some of the other things get in the way. Now, there's a lot of other things like, could I have been more efficient with my work, all that kind of stuff. But now it has been, because now I'm a dad, and that things did start to slip for me once my daughter was born, where I have now this massive change in my life that's wonderful, but I also it's there and it's never going to go away. So I've got to work for me. The time that I've got to use has shrunk significantly. So I've got to, these are the days I'm working out, and these are the times, this is the time I'm going to do it, and we're going to hold to that within reason. If there's something going, obviously I'll accommodate, but that has been absolutely massive. Now, one thing I will say to your time, your example with the food timing.
Yeah.
One thing I would say to something like just that specific example, if let's say the general goal is I want to improve my nutrition. Okay. Right. From a goal standpoint, that's way too broad, right? I think I know you're for getting tagged here with habit change. If that's way too broad, okay, there's way too much. You don't know exactly where to go. So let's say that coach, they said, hey, I think if you eat more consistently, that will help. Maybe there's an outcome the person wants to try to change. So maybe they binge eat at night. And the coach, a big thing with binge eating is if you don't eat throughout the day, hunger and appetite can get out of whack later in the day. So then they're maybe to the point where yes, my one goal here, the goal I'm focusing on with improving my eating is timing, right? So now I think people can get into trouble. Just let's run with that example. Okay. Where I think people get in trouble is okay, I got my schedule set, my timing is good, but now I've got to have a protein and a carb and a fat. Right. Okay, well then where's my veggie? Yeah. So now that change has turned into dozens of changes. Right. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes that's the point where it's just too much. So going back to the overarching concept of fewer changes over time are going to outperform. So make yourself, and this would apply to anything, give that person or yourself a couple weeks where you're just focusing on the timing aspect. Don't worry as much about what it is. Just get the timing aspect down and see how that goes.
Right.
Then, okay, timing, I got it. It's like not really that big of a deal anymore. I don't have to think about it as much. Maybe I should start thinking about what I eat now.
Right.
You know, some people are probably like, that's super slow. And it can be very slow, but
right.
Again, from a sustainability, if you're thinking long game sustainability, find that's going to be more successful than trying to change everything. And I think that's really, really relevant now with like the new year and,
right.
you know, we know that the people are doing like the 6-week challenges, you know, stuff like that, where it's like that, all those changes are happening, you know, simultaneously.
Yep.
And anyone in fitness, and most people know what the result of those are, is, you know, you'll see really good results for whatever, like for, you know, things like fat loss or whatever for those 6 weeks. And by and large, the changes just don't stick. And I think that's a big surprise, because so much has changed at once. And then 6 weeks, it's like grit your teeth, white knuckle through it.
Right.
And then you just can't maintain it. So
yeah, it's almost like you, in that example right there, it's kind of like, you are super ultra focused on that one thing and putting so much energy into it that honestly you might get burned out on it. And by the end of that 6 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever, in your example, you're just ready for a break, right? Mentally, physically, whatever it is. And then that's when you see people kind of fall off the wagon a little bit and, you know, revert back to those bad habits that they had before they got into that challenge or whatever. So I could see a point where those challenges might be good in a sense of maybe creating new habits. Say a person's never worked out before, or it's been a really long time, you know, that at least got them into the gym or at least got them thinking on the right track. But at the same time, like, I completely agree. Like, you can't look at it in terms of like a month or 2 months or something like that, because that's just not going to last. That's not going to hold up. Like you said, you have to make small changes along the way if you want them to last long term, because really it is about behavior change, like you said, and creating new habits. And yeah, if you just kind of throw something at the wall, hope that it sticks, and eventually it's going to slide off and it's not going to be there anymore. So,
and that, you know, yeah, that's a great point, because that gets at the aspect of like, is what the change you're wanting to implement, is it meaningful to you? And that's a massive, I think, factor in long-term change. Is like, hey, you know, someone might go to the gym because they think they should or know they should work out for reasons or for whatever. But I think you and I both know that at some point that change has to be tied to like something a little bit deeper, as far as something that's really, really meaningful. Not to say that you can't just desire to be leaner or desire to be more muscular or whatever, or flexible or whatever the fitness outcome is. But I think for most people, they've got to take that next step to identify like, what's the real reason this is desired? Like, what's and that this change either needs or wants to be made. Relevancy, that that relevancy, and that just kind of that immediacy just pushes the focus more to, this has got to become a long-term change.
Right.
It's just the focus of like, yeah, I know I should be doing this, or I think I should, so start enjoying this thing, whether that's whatever 6-week challenge, or start doing something. Probably not as successful. We know it's not as successful.
Right.
Yeah, it somehow has to be kind of, I think, when you're thinking about changes to make, sometimes it's useful to go a little bit more deep, like a little deeper as to like why you want to make the change and why it's important to you. But there are also cases, like you said, where sometimes that just the getting started aspect can be really important, for sure.
Yes, something you just said made me think about really all of this in the bigger picture, I mean, it could be about patience and being a little more patient with the process, trusting the process that you're going through. I think a lot of times, like, we are, as humans, we are so, I don't know, we have short attention spans, basically, is what it's turning into. I mean, that's why, you know, Netflix, Amazon Prime, like, streaming services like that are popular in a sense, I think, because there are no commercials. Like, we can just watch a show or watch something straight through, and we don't have to, you know, sit through those commercials, which, I mean, I have no problem with them, but you know that some people, you know, they just want to get right back to the show. So in terms of fitness, nutrition, everyone wants immediate results. They don't want to wait that extra time that it might honestly take. Everyone's different. I mean, you know that. Everyone's going to go at a different pace. Everyone has different issues that they're working with. So I think really kind of maybe patience is a big aspect of this, and just kind of realizing that you have your end goal that you're working toward, but like, hey, like, this isn't going to happen tomorrow, or this isn't going to happen next week. I need to make small changes. Maybe it's just like one small change, I don't know, every couple weeks, every month, maybe even longer than that, so that you can build up over time. Because really, what's more important is that, you know, seeing those changes immediately and hoping that they last maybe a couple of months, or making smaller changes, realizing that that's going to last years and hopefully for the rest of your life.
For sure.
So,
and the patience thing, you know, it's good for everyone to remember that success is not a linear process.
Right.
And progress in anything is not linear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this from fitness and training standpoint is like, after the new, not only are improvements much smaller in magnitude, they don't come by as often,
right?
And it's like this, you know, it's not, oh, I'm getting better, and just infinite. It's
right.
Like, go up, you're gonna improve, you're gonna dip, and like that again. It's almost like just a mindset shift. It's a realization. It's education.
Mm-hmm.
That's what all success and progress looks like, regardless of really what your goal is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not linear. It's going to undulate. So that speaks to the patience aspect of, yep, got to stick with it. You got to see it through, which ties all the way back, I think, to the ready. Are you ready, willing, and able? And then is it meaningful? Does it matter? Does the change mean something to you from the standpoint of like your overall values or your overall goals, or do they speak to you on some level as a person and like to your heart? And that those aspects, if they're aligned, it's much easier to be patient, for sure.
Yeah. I think you really just kind of tied all that together there, everything that we've been talking about, because really it sounds like the overarching theme is, you know, make sure if you're going to make a change, make sure you are committed to it, like find out why it's important to you. And I think once you realize that, that's going to keep you on track to beginning to make change. But again, like, don't be too anxious about it. Don't get impatient about trying to make that change immediate. You know, don't be impatient with trying to make that big change, that big goal immediate. But rather make small changes along the way, because when you do that, you're going to eventually create habits that are going to last a lot longer, as opposed to just trying to make an immediate change.
Right.